Good morning. It is Thursday, July 2nd, 8:15. This is Travis in the Raw this morning after the US World Cup win last night. We went to a watch party. Kids, they're not as interested. I mean, it's starting to get interested, but the momentum is contagious. Great win, great World Cup so far. I am buzzing for anticipation for the game in Seattle coming up here. A little nervous with Flo out from the red card. Team's got good momentum. I don't know if there's any way that they can. I don't think they can appeal that. However, you have to overcome adversity sometimes along the journey. We certainly have had that in our group over the years. So feeling good, so good. I'm going to start out with this, and then we'll jump right into a couple things I want to talk about momentum. But first, almost heaven, West Virginia. Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country roads. I love that at the end of the games. I mean, I wish we could fast forward to Monday right now. So, yesterday, and I'm doing these podcasts to break out of, we've been in a funk, and I want to do something, to be proactive. I want to write more, obviously. The RH Too Cheap to Ignore article was pretty prescient. I think there's possibility with that with Charter. But what I the reason I wanted to do this morning is keep the momentum going with the podcast. And I also had a couple thoughts on my mind. Alex knew, he asked the other day, he said, Burry had said this was maybe quarter in rebalancing, and was there any more to that? And I said, well, we've had 16 days of volatility and, extended volatility. And then I was looking, when I woke up, and basically I saw a note that from Goldman Sachs where momentum had the worst day in 6 years yesterday. And it sounds bad, and it is bad for momentum stocks. And then I looked bigger picture, and really we've had, three swings up because in or three total swings. So moves up to moves down, so six parts. And the latest one was we had a big move up, the 2 days prior, and then we gave that all back in one day. So you're just kind of oscillating. And if you look at the Qs or MTUM, those stocks, they haven't broken, or even SanDisk and Micron, they haven't broken the 50-day moving averages, but you're starting to break the 10-day exponential moving averages. And then if you look a little bit deeper, I noticed yesterday Meta had a really big day. That was kind of a crowded short because people were worried that they'd have to do a stock offering because their balance sheet was maybe the worst out of the hyperscalers. They turned around and said they're going to sell compute capacity, kind of flipping the narrative on its head, and the stock rallied because it was a crowded short. And then some of the data center plays, CoreWeave, Iron, NBS, Nebius, they had big down days, and those stocks have actually broken down a little bit. So that's interesting. You're getting a dichotomy in the market a little bit. So momentum is definitely starting to falter. I was talking to Sanjay this morning, and it reminds me of what we saw in 2000, but there the moves up and down were not just 2-day events, 1-day events. They were 5, 7, 10-day events. So you're definitely seeing an increase in volatility, and as others have speculated, either ends in one of two ways. One, you get a rotation out of momentum, and it goes to a lot of the stocks that we've been targeting. And and granted, again, we've had exposure through AMD, some of us, to Micron for some of us. but you can clearly see that momentum trade faltering in the semiconductors. And then, the only question now, is it a rotation, or is it you just get a move down in everything? So in 2000, it was a rotation, and we haven't broken the 50-day moving averages, and in a lot of those things. Last night, the Korean market was down big in the middle of the night. It kind of bounced back here a little bit. Same thing. So the KORU, the EWY, SMH was down this morning. It's bounced back. And so it's continuing that six-part series of ups and downs. Do we bounce again, where there's a seventh part up, because you've had up, down, up, down, up, down. Now is it up, or do we actually break down? That's the key question here. I also wanted to highlight Liz and Saunders had a graph out that I'll use, either attach it to this or I'll use it in my next writing piece. And her point was that dispersion is really high here. And that's, for active stock pickers, that's a good thing. Unfortunately for us, it hasn't benefited in a lot of the longs. We've had some, like Will Roundtree, mentioned that HIMS has really worked, Rockets really worked. Some of the housing places started to work. I was encouraged. Got to give back in some of those yesterday. So, but you're seeing, heightened volatility. It's a phase change, and we want to see a rotation here as part of that. And it makes sense that it would have kind of culminated in the end of the quarter window dressing, and everybody expected some volatility, but then you get more amplified volatility from that. So again, are we just going up, down, up, down, up, down, now up, and then down, or do we break down at some point? That's the key question here. So my rendition of Country Roads is done. This is Travis, in the raw after a World Cup victory, just amped up, for the United States here. So I'm going to try to keep doing these podcasts. Once I get momentum, momentum dominates the markets, dominates everything, really. If you just, sometimes I don't feel like going to the gym, just showing up, even if you don't do that much, you're at least there and you get something done. With these podcasts, I think I had a run where I did a string. I can't remember how many I did in a row. Same thing with writing. You get writing, and it builds momentum. And when you're going through things like we are, which are an incredible, last 3 months in the markets, you want to do things to dissipate that and encourage. So avoiding the news is a positive habit, because you can get wrapped up in the news cycle. But then putting out output yourself, conversing with friends, like I talked about yesterday, those are all positive things that you can do. So the podcast is one of those. People seem to like it, and I'm experimenting and pushing my boundaries a little bit, but I'm enjoying it. So this is my latest podcast, Thursday, July 2nd. Travis in the raw today. So have a good morning, have a good day, short day in the markets, half day, and then the 4th of July weekend. Hopefully everybody has a nice weekend. I know a couple of you are going to the celebration in D.C., which sounds really cool, the Great American Celebration with the 50 state fair exhibits. And we've got a pretty cool 4th of July where they do a drone show, and just looking forward. It's been 100 degrees here basically the last couple of days. Heat index a lot higher, so it's definitely the heat of summer. And I know in Europe it's been really hot too. There's obviously been a lot of talk about air conditioning in Europe. We traveled there last summer. Glad that in some ways we're not there right now or through these heat waves. So have a great day, man. Take care. Bye.